We have 93 dupes from Ruler of the Sky, and for some of them it's getting hard to fit all the cards on one screen. I think eventually I'll start shrinking it down and only showing the meta-relevant cards, but as of right now we're still going through all of them. For this video, I'll be covering Grass, Fire, Water, Lightning, and Psychic, and for the follow-up video I'll cover all the other types. Wurmple is the classic damage versus HP, and I prefer HP personally, especially because you tend to run Wurmple in a deck with no other basics. Also, the latest Dustox is colorless, so you could run it in any deck, and this Wurmple would be better there. The old Silcoon and Cascoon block all damage below 50, which is actually a pretty nice effect. The new ones are much better though, with an attack that lets you draw out your deck and put evolved mons directly onto your bench, which additionally has synergy with new Beetafly's attack. I'm just now realizing how weird it is to have Cocoon Pokemon, considering all Pokemon fully transform and change their shape completely upon evolving. Beetafly's old card did 50 damage to any target, which is actually an incredibly useful effect, especially considering its very low cost. The new one works with the cocoons to deal damage based on your bench, and it caps out at an impressive 120 for 1 energy, which is even higher factoring Dustox's ability. The old card isn't bad, but the new one can actually perform against top meta decks, which is impressive. Both Dustox cards apply status. New Dustox does it randomly, but pulls from a pool which includes Burn, which is probably the best status here. More importantly, it can use this ability from the bench, which means you can get it even twice per turn, which in my book justifies the higher attack cost. In a Beetafly deck, you should have plenty of time to attach energies anyway. Kricketot's new card loses damage to be colorless, but both Kricketoons presently need grass energy, so the old one is just better. The new Kricketoon attacks more cheaply, but loses confusion. Regardless, I think it's the better card just for its activation speed. Combee is an interesting case. All three have very low HP and the same retreat cost. I've been seeing people mostly playing Reckless Charge, which can knock out babies in one hit. The Call for Family one isn't bad at all, but Vespiquen decks typically run a large number of basics anyway. Plus, with Fragrant Forest, the ability to pull basics with Combee is likely to be excessive. Both Karablasts are colorless since they evolve into a metal type. I think the better Escavalier is the one which only costs 1 energy, so the new Karablast has distinctly bad synergy with that, and the old one is better. Dhelmise has a hilariously expensive attack for a non-EX card which doesn't evolve, and its only merit is on superior decks, where the old one already has higher damage for the same cost. The old one is much better. Pheromosa's new card is quite powerful, but as soon as it gets a knockout, its utility falls off a cliff. At least the energies can easily be saved with Lusamine. But Pheromosa's better utility is actually using the old one to set up Cyrus Pulls, and it still has good meta relevance on grass decks, even currently. We have 5 Ponyta. The new one has an energy ramp, which is bad for most of the Rapidash cards, but very good for Rapidash EX, or the latest Rapidash, which needs 3 energies. I think I personally like the Singe one, but I would use Stoke if Rapidash EX was a better card. Blaine does work with the new Rapidash, but I think it's way too much investment for the damage, and I think the best one by far is the Overdrive Smash one, which activates quickly and hits nice benchmarks with Blaine. The new Flareon is probably the best hope of killing Oricorio in a Flareon EX deck. The damage it hits is pretty good with the burn, and you could afford to discard thanks to Flame Patch and Flareon EX's Combust. The other Flareons are okay, but I think the newest one is probably the best for the combination of speed, power, and utility. The two Moltres cards are almost identical in function. I guess you can slot one of these into a Moltres EX deck or something, but without Will, it's not very good. Plus, it's a lot of energy to put on a card considering its HP. I guess the new one might be better just because 140 is such a powerful benchmark. Both Cyndaquil functionally do 20 damage, but the new one might do 40 or more if the opponent misses their flip, so it should be better unless the opponent has an Ogerpon or something. And if you're fighting grass, you've got a big edge anyway. For Quilava, you also get the burn effect on the new one, but I prefer the speed of attacking on the old one personally. It does depend on your teammates though. You could honestly run any of the 3 Houndours. The latest one has the same average damage as the original, but is probably better since you could knock out babies, and you're likely to be running it with Victini. As for Houndoom, I like the corner one a lot, but the energy destruction effect of the latest one is actually very good considering the Victini synergy. The latest Heatmore is probably the worst one, it's just hard to justify putting 2 energies on it. The best one is almost certainly Tongue Whip, which is useful for setting up Cyrus Pulls later on. They keep making terrible new Psyduck cards. The best one is unquestionably the first, which blocks supporters. The new Golduck has good HP, but I'd much rather run Wave Splash or Psychic, which attack much more quickly. Staryu's new card can't benefit from weakness, but it can hit through effects which block damage. I think this is usually bad and worse than the original. Starmie's new card has the same effect, but higher damage than old Starmie. Still, I think the free retreat cost and lower investment of the original make it more usable. Carvanha got 2 new cards counting the promo, and both of them work with Wallace. One can knock out babies while the other sets up Cyrus Pulls. You can go either way here, both are quite good. Old Whalmer is colorless, but new Whalmer is stronger. I can't imagine running either Wailord other than in a water deck, so the new one seems like an upgrade. Even with Mantike or Soothing Shore, the old Alomomola seems much too expensive for the effect. The new one doesn't look good either, considering what you get for the cost, so I wouldn't touch either one. Dewpider's new card loses damage, but it's cheaper. This is generally an upgrade to me. The new Araquanid traps opponents in the active spot, which in my opinion has better synergy with Lana, but the original is notably much higher damage. I think the new one is better, but if you're running it in an off-color deck like Charizard Y, you'd want the old one just because it has more HP. I think the only Bruxish card with a shred of meta relevance is the original, which has an interesting synergy with Greninja. The new one is a workable early game attacker, but you can do much better. Our latest Pikachu lowers the opponent's damage by 20, which is okay but not amazing. Notably it's colorless, so I guess you could use it with a Alolan Raichu EX or something. As usual, I recommend Spark or Thunder Jolt. I was interested to see what people would find with the new Raichu, which is the gold rare of this set, but I haven't seen anyone run it at all. Paralysis from the bench is an absurdly strong effect, but it's not a great card besides that. And a lot of people are still running status healing currently. I can see it getting synergy in a later set, and it's probably the best of all these, but none of them are meta presently. Because of the way Volkner works, Shinx functions better as a late game card. Due to that, the Hide one is probably the best, just to stall. The latest one needing 2 energies is bad, even for the minor power boost you get. For Luxray, the free retreat cost of the new one is very appealing, though I still like the bite version personally. Thanks to Volkner, every Luxray card we've gotten is actually extremely good. The latest one hits a titanic 180 damage if the opponent has 2 points, which is not a difficult condition at all to set up. People are currently running a Luxray deck with 1 Volt Bolt and 1 Revenge Blast, and evolving to whichever one wins in the endgame of that particular battle. And the deck is surprisingly performing well even against top meta threats. The latest Pachirisu works in Rotom EX decks, which are very item dense, and it can beat Oricorio or the like in a pinch, plus it activates very quickly. It's probably the best of the 3. The Plasma one is playable, but probably usually a bit worse than Pichu. Original Dynamo has the highest damage but lowest HP, the middle one retreats for free, and the latest one balances power and bulk, though I use those terms very loosely here. All 3 are playable. As for Electric, the newest one loses HP compared to the middle one, but has a cheaper retreat cost. I personally just use the original since I like the 1 energy stage 1 cards a lot. The latest Electros sounds hysterical to play into a Mega Diancie deck, but apart from that it's probably the worst of the 3 since a lot of good cards currently are low energy. Our latest Helioptile does 10 damage to any target, which is quite good for both Cyrus and for getting better Clemont backpack benchmarks. But the best one is probably Thundershock, since the only reason you'll be attacking with this card is to stall while waiting for Heliolisk or Clement. As for Heliolisk, the new one is the best by far, having fast activation plus absurd damage on the opponent's whole field thanks to Clement's backpack stacking damage on all targets. New Wattrel is colorless, but all Kilowattrels need lightning energy, so this is just bad. Kilowattrel's 2 cards are both generic attackers and are probably similarly viable, though notably the original has a free retreat cost, which is nice. Clefairy's new card allows it to use the opponent's attacks, which is quite novel and might actually have some tech value with Mega Gardevoir, but you can use Mew EX for the same thing, and it's bulkier. It probably is the best of the 4, even if its attack cost is absurd. The newest Clefable looks generally worse than the Moonblast one, but all of these cards look quite bad. All 3 Drowsy cards look bad too, and I guess stalling with Hypnosis is probably the best thing it can do. The original Hypno putting things to sleep from the bench is far more useful than the other 2, which have attack costs way beyond what their HP allows. Even the Psychic Trainer doesn't make the latest one remotely usable, I think. The latest Mr. Mime does 40 damage normally, but 80 if it has the same number of energies as the opponent. I think this fundamentally just doesn't work, since most early game attackers are 1 energy, which Mr. Mime can't even match. While in the late game, Mr. Mime will be useless against most win cons. Again, I wouldn't touch any of these. New Mewtwo has the sharpest ramp of any card with the move Psychic, and you could probably legitimately run it on a Mega Gardevoir deck if you wanted. Still, the burst damage of the original is quite high, so it has some merit too. Obviously Mega Diancie is your main nuke for Psychic, and I think the newer Mewtwo is better for working with the Psychic Trainer supporter to give you a use beyond damage. Ralt's new card draws a supporter, which has obvious synergy with Mega Gallade, but is probably the most useful effect in general. The Teleport one additionally is not as useful ever since Peculiar Plaza. The new one is probably just the best on all Gallade and Gardevoir decks going forward, which is nice because it has an excellent full art. As for Kirlia, the newest card is almost identical to the last one, but it's weaker and cheaper. For Gallade decks, it's probably the best, but Gardevoir decks would prefer Psybeam. Woobat's latest card has the same average damage as the middle one, but it can also knock out babies, so I think it's the best. The latest Woobat loses 10 HP compared to the middle one, but gets a Confusion effect, which is absolutely worth the minor loss of bulk. Finally, our latest Oricorio discards to attack, which sounds annoying, but is actually incredible for both Chandelure and Houndstone decks, which power up based on your discard pile. Additionally, the energy cost is low and the HP is decent, so it's a great early game attacker. This is an auto slot in for those decks, which are still functional in top level play. That's all for now, see you guys in part 2.